Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Nostalgia. We're doing a fun solo episode today where I take you down memory lane and talk about Juicy Couture, Dooney and Bourke, and 2000s girls' first designer bags. I'm talking about handbags, or as we called them then, purses, or as your mom called them, pocketbooks. I worked as a handbag salesperson for 4 years, aka the length of time that many people go to college. So basically, I got a degree at MKU, Michael Kors University. But because of my actual bachelor's degree in fashion merchandising, I'm going to talk about handbags, yes, from a nostalgic perspective, as I tend to do, but also through a fashion industry lens, since that's an area of my expertise. If you told me I'd start a podcast and be talking about the fashion industry, I'd be like, yeah, probably not. But if you said, well, actually, it's about when you went to TJ Maxx at 14 in the suburbs of Connecticut and saw Lindsay Lohan in an ad for Dooney and Bourke with this classic and cute, iconic white backpack that you somehow had the audacity to get rid of, I'd be like, oh, got it. That tracks. So, okay, I have several quick sidebars to make before we really dive in. The first is between designer and luxury. So, I feel like these two words are used interchangeably now, but I want to differentiate. Okay, so luxury is recognized by heritage, meaning the brand's history, its legacy, and its exclusivity and service. So Hermes, Dior, Chanel, Givenchy, Monsieur Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Armani, etc. Okay, it's like when there are no prices on a menu and you're like, oh shit, that's going to be expensive. It's not accessible to the masses. They don't have sample sales. They actually don't have sales at all. And designer, on the other hand, is recognizable by name, by price, but also by hype too. It's like dining out in New York City. Cocktails are $22, but you heard it was the cool place to be. There are similarities here to luxury for sure, but a shirt would maybe cost $300, not $3,000. So this is also called attainable luxury or a mid-tier brand. So Michael Kors, Tory Burch, Coach, etc. And this is where most of the trends and designers that I'm going to talk about today lie. Granted, it's only one microcosm of society in the 2000s, but that's where we're going to hang out. And then also, I have to mention mall stores too, in contrast to a luxury brand or a designer brand, kind of like these specialty stores that you see in the mall, like American Eagle or Abercrombie. Those are like chain restaurants, right? Those are like Chili's. Anybody can go. They may emulate or copy upscale places, but they mostly do their own thing, and they can even create their own trends as well. So graphic tees, sneakers, other streetwear styles have had that trickle up effect in this way, meaning a trend started out at that peer-to-peer consumer level and then designers made more expensive versions of these things. Gucci did not invent a t-shirt. You know what I mean? Okay, anyway, another quick sidebar. We're talking about fashion. This is an industry that is not traditionally inclusive in just about any and every way. They are wasteful, discriminatory, and have created and promoted harmful ideals that have put generations of us in therapy. But with that being said, how we dress is a way that we express ourselves, and expression is one of my core values. So I love talking about fashion and the positive aspect of how trends influenced the creation of these collective memories that we have many years later. And when it comes to this, or really any time that we examine the past through a contemporary lens, there's always going to be paradoxes, there's always going to be contradictions because that's life. So, in this episode, we're going to talk about the times that inspire these trends, what these handbags of the moment were, and what getting their first designer bag ultimately meant for a tween or a teenage girl, specifically in the 2000s, and kind of like how you can channel those same feelings today in a positive way, of course. So, talking about the times, the early 2000s, what a time to be alive. Conspicuous consumption was it. This means obvious displays of wealth and the ability to buy material things. This was really evidenced in hip hop and the mainstream adoption of hip hop music in the early 2000s. So, music videos were highly, highly influential. This was before social media. So, you would see these videos. They have cars and women and diamonds and money and houses, etc. Cribs and Pimp My Ride premiered on MTV in 2000 and 2004, respectively, which were programs specifically about showcasing exorbitant wealth and lavish lifestyles. And this was also the time when reality TV was born, which made so called regular people as rich and famous and in the public interest as actual celebrities. So, McBling is the prominent micro trend here. So think Paris Hilton and Juicy Couture. And on a socio-political level, it was a problematic time as well. We we meaning young girls, were told who and what to be, and we were, just like the generations before us did. So, in regards to handbags, most were highly traditionally feminine. So, lots of the color pink, ribbons, bows, embellishments, embroidery, buckles, sequins, all of the bells and whistles, sometimes all at once. More is a good mantra for this time period. I'd also like to note that in the 2000s, counterfeit bags were all the rage. So, like luxury versus designer, today we're going to talk about authentic designer bags. We're not going to talk about counterfeit luxury bags, right? Because, especially in the early 2000s, unless you were very wealthy, you didn't have Louis Vuitton or Burberry or any of those, yeah, Dior, Fendi, any of the luxury bags that you might see Carrie Bradshaw wearing on Sex and the City. Teenagers were not wearing that until, again, unless you were majorly wealthy. I'm speaking, on behalf of middle America and just like suburban coastal communities. Again, only one microcosm, but luxury bags weren't really brought to the mainstream like that until they were counterfeited. And when people would wear fake Burberry headbands and they would, anyway, that's a whole tangent. Let me get back to what I was going to tell you. The difference between a counterfeit and a knockoff. So, a knockoff's inspired by something. It's like when Shein makes a direct copy of a designer handbag that looks like a frame bag. It's kind of a replica. Or when you're walking through a market and you see what looks like a Michael Kors MK monogram bag, but then when you get closer, it actually says NK. And that's a true story. Anyway, I'm not saying that this isn't IP, intellectual property infringement, but I'm also not a lawyer. So we're going to leave it at that. Versus counterfeit is when you make an exact copy of a designer logo and you put it on a bag to make it look exactly like a designer bag with the intent to sell it as that label's bag. So you can't just like go on your computer, draw a Prada logo, print it out and stick it on a bag and be like, this is Prada. No, it's not. No, it's not. That's counterfeit. And listen, I'm not saying that buying luxury and designer handbags isn't just like capitalism, materialism, patriarchy, elitism tied up in a nice little bow under the guise of handcrafted in Italy by artisans with generations of renowned heritage. But what I am saying is that luxury and designer names are positioned that way for a reason. So, not only is counterfeiting illegal, it's extremely tacky. So, the point is that in the 2000s, there was a different perception than now, obviously. So, whether you could or you couldn't afford to own designer, everyone's purpose was the same. It was to prove their worth through these material items. So, now in 2022, I want the main takeaway to be this: whether you do or don't care about brand names or labels, whether you can or can't afford them, it doesn't matter. You matter. You have worth. And to paraphrase Jay Shetty, you can own material things without them owning you. I'm very much now a possessions minimalist after working 12 years in the fashion industry, where it was literally my job to sell things to people that they truly didn't need, but they wanted. But like I said, I love expressing myself through fashion. So let's get into it. Okay. So as I mentioned, I am from Connecticut. Connecticut has many names: the Constitution State, the Nutmeg State. It's also the Dooney and Bourke state as it was founded in 1975 in Norwalk. I just found this out today. This brand was really more like for moms, I would say, and it really started being marketed to teenagers in the early 2000s. So they launched their It Bag collection in 2003 with Misha Barton as the spokesperson. And the OC, my favorite show of all time, Misha Barton was huge. Dooney and Bourke really picked the right spokespeople to really reach this new demographic that they were going for. And this Dooney and Bourke, in case you are listening instead of watching, if you're watching, I'm going to have pictures up so you can see what all of these handbags look like. But if you're listening, I'm going to do my best to describe them in a lot of detail. So these It bags, that was like the classic Dooney and Bourke look where it was a white bag and it had the DMB logo in kind of like a rainbow print, very similar to the LV one. And there was a little keychain on it that was in the shape of a heart. It was totally adored. And I personally didn't get into DMB until the following year in 2004 when Lindsay Lohan was the spokesperson. And some of these pictures I was looking up from the campaign, I mean, the drama, I just loved it. Judy and Bourke was really just a mainstay throughout the decade, and their bags definitely evolved as you went into the 2010s to be more simplistic, and there were more leather pieces as opposed to kind of like a Saffiano leather or different synthetics, to be a little bit more simple and more streamlined and more classic. But they were definitely big in that monogram moment and one of the super, super recognizable brands. Again, I don't know why I got rid of that backpack. I got it at TJ Maxx for, I think it was $50 in 2004. I don't know where I got $50 from. Maybe I got an allowance. Anyway, but it was a big deal because it was my first designer bag. Okay, so this next bag I want to talk about, it's technically not designer. I know, I'm like, let's talk about designer handbags, except this one that's not designer. These are just like bags in the 2000s that everybody just was obsessed with and had to have. Okay, so stay with me here. The next is the initial bags. We said text transform lowercase. That's a coding joke for all my tech savvy people listening. These were the bags with the initials on them. So whether whatever brand it was, there were a few silhouettes that were like the most common. So you had the baguette, you had kind of like a tote bag, you had the little cylindrical kind of bags as well. And these bags with the initials on them, these were sold at LTD2, aka Limited 2, and they also sold camis and charm necklaces with the initial as well, as worn by Regina George. But we also have to give credit here to Laverne DeFazio of Laverne and Shirley because that girl was consistent. Every single shirt she wore had an L on it. I definitely asked my mom to sew an N on my shirts, and she's like, "Yeah, no." Let's see. Next, again, not designer, LOL at me. These mixed media bags. So we were obsessed with like the magazine collage mixed media look and the grip these had on us. There were also these Life magazine bags. This unlocked a major memory for me. Remember, there were these little baguette shaped shoulder bags. They usually had a black and white picture, and sometimes they would have little rhinestones on them, or they would do kind of like the selective color, or it'd be like a ballerina and her tutu would be pink or something. And wow, if you're watching, I have a picture of the bag up right now because you'll be like, yes, those were it. Just like a scene from a magazine. I don't know why we were so obsessed with we were. And okay, the last non-designer thing that I want to talk about before we get to the two most popular brands is backpacks because yeah, if you were a tween or a teenager in the 2000s, you were still going to school. Even if you're in elementary school, you're going to school. So no one was really wearing, I would say Coach made backpacks in the 2000s, but that wasn't adopted super mainstream unless you had friends that went to private school. Um, but Kipling was super popular. as a backpack, and it had this little keychain on it that had like a furry, what was it, like a monkey, like an animal keychain. I didn't have it, but it was popular enough that you would know of the brand. And I personally had an LL Bean backpack. So it was sky blue LL Bean backpack. I didn't have any of the embroidery on it. Nope, just plain sky blue, which that was definitely more of a 90s thing, I feel like, but it transitioned very nicely into the 2000s. And with said sky blue LL Bean backpack, I also wore baby blue Adidas Superstar shoes with a short sleeved, like light blue and dark blue, horizontally striped with a white collar. It was a rugby polo. This was the first day of school. I was in 7th grade, so 2002. White collar, white lace up, the blue stripes, the blue backpack, the blue Adidas, and a denim skirt. It was a look. That was also after I had like removed most of my eyebrows, but again, we're talking about handbags today, not our personal life decisions. So, yes, the backpacks. I think those for the most part, I don't know, they remained pretty basic just because we were like going to school and throwing the backpacks all over again. But what I really want to talk about is like that departure, right? From wearing just a backpack to school to like actually having a handbag as an accessory. And I'm going to get a little bit more into what that means. But like Juicy, for example, we cannot talk about the 2000s without mentioning Juicy. They had the velour handbags that were just like the tracksuits, right? So the most popular shapes of those were, yes, the baguettes, bowlers too, which Von Dutch had as well, and just like these massive bags. I think in the 90s, more messenger type bags are popular because we were carrying actual physical things like Walkmans, whatever. You'd carry things around your bag. And in the 2000s, we started carrying the bag to carry the bag. Like the bag was the thing that we were bringing from place to place, not just the contents of the bag. And the one that I remember the most in particular, Juicy, I can't remember what the name of it was, but it had kind of like that ribbon throughout the top. And of course, there's always a keychain. There are a few varieties too with some embroidery or rhinestones. And I mean, Juicy really, it evolved into a bit of a lifestyle brand, whether it's the clothing, you add a handbag, you add the perfume. There's all of these emerging product categories, and you're just able to step into this world. And that, again, that whole McBling style where that micro trend is, it's literally Paris Hilton and Juicy Couture, that kind of gothic font. It's that highly stylized pink look, and yeah, like Victoria's Secret pink sweatpants and Ugg boots. I would say that kind of is what McBling evolved into. That's a whole nother look. We could do literally a whole episode on the uniform of a North Face jacket and Victoria's Secret pink leggings or sweatpants with Ugg boots. Like that's a whole separate episode. But anyway, Juicy was it. And then the brand that I just feel like if we had to pick one bag and one bag only to represent the 2000s, it would be a Coach Monogram Wristlet. I truly cannot understate their influence and their impact. And it was especially important to teenage girls because there wasn't a trickle down effect. It wasn't adorned by Carrie Bradshaw or Paris Hilton or anyone who actually had the money to get luxury items. This design was the first that was popularized by teenage girls by seeing their friends wear it at school. And I think that's what was really important, this whole idea of like peer to peer commerce. Because at the time, we still looked to magazines to tell us what was cool, what was popular, what was in vogue, what was the newest style. And it was really, because it was before social media, it was like the end of the monoculture, right? Where we're all consuming the same media. We are all watching the same TV shows. We are all reading the same magazines. Therefore, we are all getting the same information about what it means to be in style or popular or in fashion or whatever you're supposed to be at the time. Like everybody would get the same kind of memo. And so to see, I can't remember his name, but the creative director at the time of Coach really did a great job at targeting this audience that is, teenage girls. It's the most, they do the most and they're given the least amount of credit for it. They come up with every trend. They always know for a fact what they think is cool and they're willing to spend money on it or their parents' money on it. And yet they're constantly just kind of, this is a separate tangent too, but like how they're kind of always pegged as like fangirls when really like there's so much validity in what they want and what they crave and what they need. But anyway, that kind of ties into what, as a tween, a middle schooler, a high schooler in the 2000s, what getting your first designer bag, getting your first handbag, even what that really meant for you. So there are 5 things that I think that it really represents. The first is freedom. And so I think that when you get a handbag, you feel like, okay, I'm not a little kid anymore. It isn't like a toy handbag. Like, this is for real. I'm starting to look like an adult, or at least you think you do. And this reminds me, I'll put the picture up too if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify. This viral tweet from 2019 where the girl says how she thinks that Joe Jonas is going to fall in love with her at the Jonas Brothers concert because she wore this. And it's like, it's literally what tweens looked like in the 2000s. But we all thought we were so grown up and so cool and really getting the first taste of whatever that freedom means to you, when you're going through this time in your life where maybe you don't really feel like a total kid anymore and you want to feel like you're a bit grown up. I think that's an exciting time. And so fashion is a great way to be able to express that. Similarly, independence. So with freedom comes that independence. Okay, I'm starting to be a little bit more like an adult. I might have responsibility, but like to a minimal extent, not too much. So with a I literally just almost call it a purse, but that's literally, we only called things handbags, I would say, in the 2010s and on. Everything was a purse, or again, as moms would say, and probably still do say, pocketbook. Anyway, with having your purse, you might have even had a cell phone. You might have had your flip phone. You might have even had car keys if you were old enough to drive. If you have a purse, like you have stuff to put in it. You have a wallet. You might have even gotten a part-time job after school and you might have your own money now. That's independence, it's financial independence. It is just starting to get these first tastes of responsibility. And again, only speaking on behalf of one microcosm, there are teens and tweens in different situations where you have to grow up a lot faster and you might not have that luxury of, the wealth or the time or the ability to not take on responsibility. But again, totally, there's layers to this. Isn't that a Nick Jonas song? Anyway, the third thing is identity. So when you get to that age where like you're getting a handbag, you're getting something where you feel like you're starting to gain this responsibility, you have this sense of identity as your own person. It's, I think, if you have siblings, you may identify with this too, where it's like not like when you were a kid when your mom bought you and your sister the same shirt but in a different color. It's like you really grew into your own likes and dislikes. So if you got a purse, you could pick out your own one and it would really represent however you were feeling. Maybe you had a favorite color. Okay, I was obsessed with polka dots. Like everything had polka dots on it for me. Red, also my favorite color. Red with white polka dots, just anything. We had a Minnie Mouse moment, lived it up, red with white polka dots. But like that was it for me. I loved polka dots, and I had a few polka dot handbags, but it's like you got to decide what was an extension of your personality, what represented you. The next thing is a sense of belonging. So I would say this is among your friends. You had something to talk about with your friends. You could show that you were up to date with what's going on. And this kind of ties in with the next thing, which is establishing a social status, which I think extends beyond your friends. I feel like with a sense of belonging, when you're in middle school or high school, that primarily has to do with your group of friends or like wherever you feel like you quote fit in at school. And social status is like beyond people in your own friend circle. It's like your school in general, like the student body in general. Like you could look at somebody in the hallway, they can label you, judge you, categorize you, put you in a clique, or give you a level of social hierarchy solely by the handbag you wore. I'm not saying this is a good thing. I'm just saying that that's how it was, trying to fit in. And so when you're a teenager, your social status, like that's currency, that's energy, that's everything you need to kind of get you through. And again, I'm not saying that this is a good thing. And I think that social media has probably exacerbated this for young people, people in high school today, but in different ways, right? Because I think that mean girl culture was a real thing in the early 2000s. So maybe it's not better or worse, it's just different. And so, in order to really channel the most positive aspects of what that feeling of like getting that Dooney and Bourke, Lindsay Lohan represented, sorry, Lohan? It's Lohan, it's not Lohan. Anyway, to get that freedom, independence, shape of identity, sense of belonging, establishment of social status. Here's how we can channel these feelings that we get as an adult. So, first of all, freedom. You have freedom because you are an adult now, likely, who can choose how you want to spend your disposable income, whether on possessions or not. I think that's what's really powerful too. It's not like, okay, the older we get, the more money we get, the more things we can buy, or the more we can replace the things that we already bought to get a higher level and like keep going and going and going. It's the same as the rat race, right? So you get to decide, do I want to be caught in this rat race of like, oh, well, Michael Kors isn't high end enough for me anymore. So now I want this bag. It's like, are we going to play that game? Are we? I'm not anymore. But that's up to you because you have the freedom to decide what's important to you, what's not. Similarly, you have independence as an adult in that you have autonomy and also responsibility over your life, your time, your possessions. And so obviously, you have more independence now if you were an adult than when you were 16 years old. Your responsibilities look a lot different. But again, I think that it's powerful. It's power and it's powerful to have, that autonomy over how you want to live your life, and how you want to represent yourself, which ties into identity. Because this one's interesting. As much as we do learn, grow, change, evolve, I do think your childhood spirit, it always stays with you if you choose to tap into it. That doesn't necessarily mean you like the same things. Although in my case, I still wear flare jeans and platform shoes like I did when I was 7. But it means you have a strong sense of self. So when I say that, I mean self awareness and self esteem. So you have that strong enough sense of self to just be you, right? I think identity as an adult is, I've done a lot of contemplation on this and I'm always so fascinated. And something else I love thinking about is belonging. I mean, I think that connecting over pop culture is the happy medium here between like deep and superficial. And that's why I created this podcast, honestly, to unlock those core memories and foster that sense of belonging. Because, like I say, the purpose here is to bring people together and make them feel like a part of something. And so, to be able to do that as an adult, it's important to find like minded people in terms of your interests, your belief system, how you like to help others. Those are kind of the deeper things rather than the superficial things like, oh, what designer you wear. I think it's super easy to go into a room and you judge someone based on what they're wearing. Oh, I would be friends with that person because they're wearing X, Y, and Z thing. But there's really so much more to it than that. I think that navigating social situations and etc. as an adult, it's not harder, but it is more complex because I do think that that belonging piece shifts from when you were a teenager to when you were an adult. Instead of being like, oh my God, are they going to like me? What do I have to do to remain in good graces or like remain at the top of the social food chain? To then really just, again, having that sense of self to be like, am I surrounding myself with people who make me feel like the best version of myself? Are these people who are expanders for me? Are these people who challenge me? And yeah, now that goes so much deeper than what's on the outside. And that goes hand in hand with social status. So, although I feel like some people always act like they're in high school, that's just because that's when they peaked. Not gonna lie. I'm gonna argue that social status isn't exactly what's important as an adult. Your reputation is. How you treat people is. How you speak about people, including yourself, is. How your attitude is. I think you can judge a book by its character, not by its cover. Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah. So it's just like with belonging. Social status is not about, oh, okay, we wear Abercrombie because it's for the cool kids and we're the cool kids. No. No. At the end of the day, those things don't matter. They don't. It's about what kind of person you are. Are you a kind person? Do you have empathy for others? Not what you wore. And I know that we say, well, it's easy when you're a teenager to not be able to have that perception beyond the superficial, but it's like, a lot of adults are still like that too. Not gonna lie. So I think that being able to look back again, I'm going to list those things one more time: the freedom, the independence, the identity, the sense of belonging, and the social status. That is what entering that time in your life where like you're getting a Coach wristlet, okay? Like if you got a Coach wristlet for Christmas, it's like, come on, that was like the best of the best. And it wasn't solely because of that label, although, again, the labels were very important. The conspicuous consumption, the overt displays of wealth, the name brands, the logos, the monograms everywhere, walking advertisements everywhere we went. But again, that was the time. And so to channel that feeling as an adult, you can still create that sense of belonging and identity for yourself, but realizing that it's you and your attitude and your character and your spirit that makes you you, not being dependent on what some fashion house tells you what to do or what some bully tells you what to do or rather tells you you're not cool enough to be doing. You get to decide. And I love that. All right. Thank you so much. I can't believe it's already been a half an hour. That went by fast. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening and continuing to listen. If you haven't caught up yet on all the past episodes of Nostalgia, make sure you do that. And if you like the show, which I hope you do, you can catch us all over the internet. So you can watch us on YouTube and on Spotify. You can listen on Apple Podcasts and pretty much anywhere you listen to pods. Don't forget to subscribe, to follow, to rate, to review, all of those good things to help us grow the show and to foster these conversations that bring people together, make them feel like a part of something, and just unlock these core memories that put a smile on their face. So thanks again for listening, and we will see you next time.